What up, though? Welcome to the 10th installment of Beauty is to Identity, just as bias is to reality. The Negro in the New World. The Negro in the New World, or properly, the American or the American Indian in America, by Sir Harry H. Johnston, 1910. The Negro as Citizen. The Americans as citizens, or the Americans as new captives, mental captives. The plan is in motion. In Florida, I found the Negroes. In Florida, I found the Americans in an advantageous and creditable position, a position demanding probity and marked ability, largely through the result of Tuskegee and Hampton teaching. In the northwestern part of Florida, the rougher classes of Negro or the rougher classes of American Indians works a good deal in the pine forests collecting turpentine. I had a glimpse of some of these camps in the pine woods, but thanks to that blessed spread of prohibition in the South and the restrictions on the sale of alcohol, these camps seemed and are, I am told, orderly and without crime, although the country Negro of Florida or the country American Indians of Florida, like his brother of the other southern states, still lies under the stigma of being a petty thief, prone to carry off at night the fowls, turkeys, or vegetables of some homestead in his vicinity, or some settler in his vicinity. Or an intruder. Yet there seemed to me, traveling through Florida, a singular lack of ill feeling between the whites and the nigs. My nig. Nearly all the rough work of Florida was being done by good tempered Negroes or good tempered Americans under the direction of white foremen or engineers. Negroes entirely, Americans entirely under white supervision are building that wonderful East Coast of Florida Railway from Miami to Key West, one of the world's wonders, a railway which crosses the shallow open sea for miles on low viaducts or varas and carries you from one fairy like coral island to another till you are brought within 90 miles of Cuba. In Florida, the Negro seems, or in Florida, the American seems to be preferred to Italians or other foreign whites. It is probably in northern Florida, western Georgia, Mississippi, Arkansas, eastern Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama, most of all, that the American Negro or the American Indian is seen at his best as peasant proprietor, farmer, artisan, professional man, and member of society. So the American is persistently more favorable as he is tamed, as he is civilized. as he becomes a citizen, as he cooperates. Here I detected no bumptiousness of manner amongst the educated and experienced, little or no rudeness from the uncultivated. My visits to the cities or towns of Georgia and South Carolina were so few and so fleeting that I could form no personal impressions of the Negro or of the American worth recording. In the Sea Islands of the coast of South Carolina between the rivers Santee and Savannah, there are Negroes or there are Americans living at the present day who were born in Africa and landed here as slave youths or children in the 40s and 50s. Others are descended from runaways, and very early in the conflict between North and South, control was temporarily abandoned over the Negro or American population of these almost tropical, swampy, flat islands, separated from the mainland by broad tidal creeks. As regards the country life of the Negroes, as regards the country life of the American Indians in Virginia, it is probably on a lower level than in the great states of the South. The colored people or the American Indians, mainly pure Negroes, or the colored people, mainly pure Americans, away from the influence of Hampton, seem to me rather stupid peasants. In parts of the coast, they have relapsed into a semi-savage existence. So easily nourished are they on the oysters, clams, and sea fish they obtain for the taking. The persistence of the Anglo-Saxon and the cooperating American Indian or Negro is obvious here. If you participate, you are favorable. If not, you're a semi-savage who lives with nature, who lives on the oysters, clams, and sea fish. Yet, though Virginian towns and schools still turn out clever Negroes and mulattoes, or yet though Virginia towns and schools still turn out clever American Indians. In Maryland, there is a very intolerant feeling in white circles against the colored population. In Maryland, there is a very intolerant feeling in white circles against the American Indian population, still very considerable in the towns. Here and in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, there are many thousand Negroes. There are many thousand American Indians engaged in industrial pursuits. In Baltimore and in Philadelphia, there are Negro, there are American quarters, which certainly were foul-smelling slums, nearly as bad as the ordinary London slum. Here, the condition of the Negro, here, the condition of the American life might cause the passing visitor to shake his head if he did not stop to reflect that these conditions had been deliberately brought about by white men, or the ones who used to live in those ordinary London slums. They wanted to mimic those ordinary London slums and bring them here to your soil portion. So much has this been realized by the better class of white men in these cities that probably before these lines are printed, the worst of the Negro slums in Baltimore, or the worst of the American slums in Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Richmond will have been swept away by the civic authorities. They have been the property of wicked white landlords and have lain under the thumb and spell of the vile saloons wherein the American has been maddened by poisonous alcohol. They brought you alcohol and they brought you religion. They brought you alcohol and Jesus to your detriment. Certain other economic conditions, moreover, have almost compelled a section of the American Indian community to develop vicious conditions of existence for the gratification of sexual passion in the dissolute sections of the white community. These questions were fully investigated after the terrible anti-Negro riots which prevailed in Baltimore a few years ago. The respectable members of the Negro community, the respectable members of the American Indian community faced the situation with splendid courage. So now it seems that in this portion, Negro is almost synonymous with civilized in some instances. The ringing earnestness of their appeal for fair play touched the hearts even of the city bosses among the whites, even of the corrupt municipalities of these great American cities of the East. The result has been a cooperation between the well-thinking and the right-doing of both races, the Americans and the Anglo/Caucasian, and an immense recent improvement in the condition of Negro life, of American Indian life in the cities of Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Northern Virginia. So they come and try to turn America/paradise/Eden into ordinary London slums. And when they turn certain portions of America into ordinary London slums with taverns and saloons and their alcohol, then after they clean it up, they pat themselves on the back for doing so. It is often a grievance to the indignant Southerner that the federal capital should contain such a large Negro population, such a large American Indian population. It is often a grievance to the indignant Southerner that the federal capital should contain such a large American population. So now it's a problem. I told you, it's a problem now that you're even here. Someone comes into your house, benefits from paradise, and then can no longer live next to you. They want you gone, and they want the house. It is often a grievance to the indignant Southerner that the federal capital should contain such a large Negro population, about 100,000. The coachmen are nearly all Negroes or nearly all American Indians. The men who attend the streets are Americans. So, of course, are all the lesser employees on the railways and at the railway stations. Many of the clerks, typists, shorthand writers, barbers, and shop assistants. They're all niggers. They're all American Indians. In addition, there are numerous American Indian doctors, dentists, lawyers, and surveyors, engineers, electricians, builders, and architects. Not a few of the excellent officials in the great public offices, museums, galleries are Negroes or Negroids or are Americans. I heard here no stories of Negro violence. I heard here no stories of American violence or tendency to crime, which would contrast this section of Washington population with that of pure white origin. Before leaving England for America, I had studied a good deal of the literature extant on the American Negro and Negroid, or the American Indian. The preponderating impression left on my mind by the works published prior to 1898, after which less pessimistic conclusions began to be formed, was that the United States Negro, or the American Indian, were hopelessly sunk in vice, crime, and squalor, that the blacks, or that the American Indians, would never be fitted for any position better than hewers of wood and drawers of water, that the half-caste women invariably drifted into a life of prostitution, and the half-caste men into poorly paid posts of drudgery beneath the notice of cheap whites. I was therefore surprised after my arrival in New York to realize that in that city there were about 100,000 American Indians who seemed to be very useful, contented, and creditable members of the community. I visited possibly over 100 American Indians, they say Negro, homes in New York. Some of them independent houses or villas, other flats, two-roomed or one-roomed apartments. As regards the houses of the well-to-do Negroes, or the well-to-do American Indians or mulattoes, everything was in good taste. Why wouldn't it be? Nowhere in the world, certainly not in Africa, has the Negro so greatly availed himself of his opportunities. Intellectually and perhaps physically, he has attained his highest degree of advancement as yet in the United States, or in America, or the portions of America that they are terming the United States, the portion that their settlers occupy. I may be reminded that the Negroes, or that the American Indians of the British West Indies, or of Haiti, or of Brazil, are theoretically happier their brethren in the United States, or their brethren in America. In this portion of America we term as the United States, because it is imagined by people who do not know intimately tropical America, or who are good observers, that the banana and certain other food products grow luxuriantly and without the assistance of human labor, that the Negro, or that the American Indian, enjoys as intensely hot climate, and under such tropical conditions has the best of health. And now the Anglo-Saxon, the Caucasian, they see fit to put fluoride and chlorine in the water. Let's shake it. This is not the case. Food, perhaps in some parts of the West Indies, is easier come by than in North America. It is certainly cheaper, but then on the other hand, the public wealth is much less. But it is not so varied or so good as it is in North America, where the whole resources of a continent ranging from the Arctic to the tropic are by a network of railways and thousands of steamers placed at the Negro's disposal, at the American Indian's disposal, so that fresh or preserved he can, with the money at his command, live far better, not only than his brethren in tropical America and Africa, but even than the European artisan, with the exception of the people of France and the United Kingdom. The present Negro and Negroid population of the United States, or the present American Indian population of the United States, is about 10 million. This is 1910 or roughly 1898, somewhere around there. The pure white population is about 79,000. And when they say white, you have to understand they are possibly speaking of Afro-Eurasians, the same people who term themselves white on their documentation today. Another million of Amerindians, Mongolians, and other non-Caucasian types make up the approximate present total of 90 million. The white element in this assemblage of peoples increases monthly by leaps and bounds by immigration, by a very fair birth rate, and by the absorption of the Amerindian, who is almost of the white man subspecies. The Negroes and Negroid, or the American Indians, are not increasing in North America at anything like the same rate. Of course, they would say that. Now, if you look at today, the so-called white element is almost going in the other direction. They're decreasing at an astonishing rate. Well, I mean, they brought their same-sex business here. They brought their Greek behavior here. They brought their jumping Jim Crow here, their drag here. So how would they be increasing in numbers at this particular time? Yes, they are bringing them over. Yes, they are coming through Ellis Island at this time. But in order to keep the lie alive, they are going to tell you that you weren't having children. Mind you, there was no Planned Parenthood at this time. Okay? There were no clinics at this time. You were still having children at home, where it was safe. It says of us that we yearly lose a fringe of our race. The near whites, by their absorption into the white community in the West, perhaps, or the North Center, where the newer peoples are not so particular about racial taboo. And they would have you believe again that our people is just mating with these people, which is definitely not the case. Because you may find us mating or getting together with some of their people here and there today, but it's nothing that's gonna like change the next generation. It's nothing that's gonna blanch us, right? But they would have you believe that when they came here, broke, starving, and gangbanging, that they were looking to get to know us and get to know us intimately enough to where we started merging families. This is a lie. If you're leaving the place, leaving everything you've ever known, you gonna stick to your people. You gonna stick to those people who are familiar to you. Death from neglect, improper food, infectious disease still takes twice as heavy a toll from Negro babyhood or from American Indian babyhood as from the white nursery. Again, they would have you believe that they're healthier than you, that they're more built for this subtropical climate than you are. Have you seen these people today? All of them complain when it starts 80 and 90 degrees. Whenever it's 80 and 90 degrees, whenever it gets above 60, they start complaining. Why? Because their skin will start to bubble. Mulattoes are less prolific ordinarily than pure whites and pure blacks. It says, phthisis kills annually as many Negroes or American Indians as it does Caucasians. Pneumonia is still more deadly in the Negro community. Why is that? Why is it more deadly in the Negro community? Because it's foreign. Because it's coming from foreigners. It's coming from people who lick their dog in the mouth, who sleep in a bed with their animals. Except a few thousand West Indies and Central American people of color or Central American Indians, the dark race receives no recruits from the world outside of the United States. In 1790, the Negro element, in 1790, the American element formed 19% of the total population of the United States. In 1790, the American Indian element formed 19% of the total population of the United States. Today, they say 13%, 20 years ago, 13%, 40 years ago, it continues to be 13%, but in 1790, it was 19%. And even this isn't the truth. In 1880, the percentage had dropped to 13. In 1900 to 11. In Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia, Virginia, North and South Carolina, the native white population was increasing between 1890 and 1900 at the rate of 29.2%, and the Negro in the same states at the rate of only 19%. On the other hand, in West Virginia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, the American Indian people are increasing faster than the whites. And the solution will probably be that the two races, white-skinned and brown-skinned, okay, this is probably as close as we're going to get to describing the American Indian's complexion. This is half. It's still a half truth. It says white skin, no such thing as a white human, and brown skinned will coexist in amity and common American citizenship on the 3 million square miles of the United States, whilst 10 millions of Afro-Americans, they introduce a completely different being, a completely different creation. Afro-Americans are slowly increasing to 20 millions between Florida and Alaska. 2, 3, 4, 5 millions of Euro-Americans will be leaving the North American continent for Central America and South America and the paradises of the West Indies. So they introduced two new creatures, Afro-American and Euro-American, both Afro-Eurasians, both from Europe, Africa, and Asia, all foreigners. There's only one American, and that's you. Always has been, is, and will be. They're coming up with new creations so that they can try to build these illusory roots here. For in cleansing Gua and in making the Panama Canal, the white American it's no such thing as a white American, no such thing as a white human, and there is definitely no such thing as a white American. This is an Anglo-Saxon. For in cleansing Gua and in making the Panama Canal, the Anglo-Saxon has learnt the secret of the tropics of how to live under an equatorial sun amid torrential rain, and yet by exterminating or avoiding insect poisoners to keep his health and vigor. In the larger imperialism of tomorrow, when the influence of the English, French, and German speaking white man extends from Cape Columbia in Grinnell Land to Cape Horn, there will be room in between his stride and his thrones for brother peoples of darker skins but equal brains. Not too much more to see here. The same despicable, disgusting foreigner causing chaos and employing your ancestors to carry it out. And today, still relying on you to further carry out the current occupation. Do the right thing.